is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Veronica Mars, Season 1, Episode 17, Cain's and Abel's. In this episode, life isn't fair, even on TV. And ain't that a bitch? So much happens this episode, guys. I really enjoyed this one. Welcome to Spoil Me. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you to everybody who's here in the chat on Crowdcast and seeing me in my starting to get over my cold state and with my Botox injection bruise on my face where I get injected for my facial twitch. But yeah, you know, I could have put concealer on it, but we're all friends here, right? So yeah, I just decided to come as I am. So yeah, this episode, there is so much going on here, guys. I don't know where to begin when it comes time for me to tell you all my weekly guess on who killed Lily. I have no clue anymore. No clue. Because as far as I'm concerned, Lily saying that Veronica has quite an imagination to think any of her family are murderers discounts any of her family from having done it at all. I know that's ridiculous because it's a ghost's word, but there it is. As far as I'm concerned, her ghost vision tells her that it's not any of them. I believe it. And she doesn't say it's not any of them. She's just like, wow, you have quite an imagination. But to me, it just felt like, yeah, that's not it. So yeah, I feel like that's something that's going to come up later as having the family being potentially guilty will be a red herring. But I guess we will see. I had said this whole time that I thought her father did it. Am I completely backtracking on that? Not completely. I'm not solid on anybody, obviously. But I feel like this is an instance of we're covering our tracks because we know it looks like you guys are guilty. We're covering our tracks because we know from the outside, everyone's going to say it looks like you guys are guilty. And we're doing our best to keep any suspicion from falling on us at all, even though the act of trying to cover our asses is making us look more guilty. It's that sort of thing to me. Melanie is saying, wow, there's a lot of people here. Yeah, Melanie. Veronica Mars, this is where I get my crowd at. But yeah, so let's start talking about what's going on here, because the very first thing that Veronica goes out to do is find Amelia DeLongpre, who is the daughter of the dude who has turned himself in and is on death row. And we get tricked a little bit because we see this girl sitting in her dorm room and assume that that's Amelia. And when somebody comes and knocks on her door looking for Amelia, she tells the guy, who, by the way, is Clarence Weidman, she tells him, oh, she's not here. She left. And for a second, I thought Amelia sensed something was wrong and was lying to this guy. But no, because then he's like, well, who'd she go with? And she's like, some blonde friend who's cute as a button. And I was like, oh, okay. So Veronica got here first. Brilliant. But yeah, this dude showing up in his black trench coat with his fucking fedora. Can you please be a little bit less he's in the bad guy uniform, right? Now, this could be the show just trying to make me view him as the bad guy, and they're really going heavy on it. But even if the show wasn't don't you think that Clarence would want to put on something a little bit less intimidating and noticeable when he goes to talk to some college students in a dorm? Dude, pretend that you're a pizza delivery guy or something. Pull a Veronica is what I'm saying. But yeah, so he is too late. Veronica has got there first. and she's escorting Amelia out, and Amelia does not know what's going on. Veronica is not being entirely honest with her about anything either. She's telling her some stuff, but Amelia's baffled because, as far as she knows, the huge share in Kane's software stock that she's going to be inheriting is part of an out-of-court settlement. That's what her mother told her. But it turns out that this is the payoff for pleading guilty to Lily Kane's murder. Now, again, why would the Kane family need to pay off somebody to take the hit for her murder if they weren't covering up for someone else? Could it have been Duncan? And they're trying to protect Duncan because that sure is what the show is trying to make us think. I don't buy it. Is it possible? Sure. Sure it is. And does this seem like the exact kind of thing that a rich family would do to cover up for their son? Absolutely it does. So all of that makes complete sense. And I'm not faulting the method. I'm just saying that if the show is trying to get me to think something, I'm not gonna, right? I will suspect everyone in the background. I might even suspect Clarence, because Clarence, I don't know what he's like. He's not under orders right now. So as far as I know, he's operating on his own, volition, and might be trying to cover up his own ass. Maybe Clarence did it. I don't know you, Clarence. I don't know your life. I don't know where you've been. So yeah, I am really there are so many, well, if they didn't do it, then why this? I don't know. Right? It does look bad. So I'm just trying to sit here and guess. I mean, okay, so okay, I'm about to get a little crazy, guys. Everybody chill. Everybody relax. So what if somebody else is trying to frame the Kane family by killing Lily and then giving Kane stock as a payoff to somebody else? What if this is all, oh my God, what if the father found out he was dying of pancreatic cancer or whatever it is that he has? He got ripped off by Kane because he stole the streaming patent, and then he does this to get back at the guy because, oh, that's what it is, isn't it? Did I figure it out? Don't tell me. That's what I'm going with. Because there is no reason why he's going to take a payoff and take the fall for a Kane family member's murder if Kanes are the people who fucked him over to begin with. There's no way. He had to have, this is this huge scheme that he concocted, right? And I don't know if he was necessarily intending to kill Lily. That might have not initially been part of his plan. Maybe he was going to do another thing. But, Anya's is saying, but why would he get money if he's guilty? We don't know where that money is coming from, right? So what if he partnered up with somebody else? The Kanes have probably more than one enemy, and they sent Kane's stock. It's just stock to somebody, and it looks, of course, like it's coming from the Kanes. But if you're trying to pay somebody off, are you going to pay them off in stock of your own company? That feels like a really stupid thing to do. I don't know. Yeah, this all feels like somebody tried to set up the Kane family, and they were rushing to try and get rid of evidence that had been put in place when they got home to make it look like maybe Duncan did it. And that's what Veronica's father came across when he got home, or when he got to their house, that made him go, why are y'all doing laundry? They were covering up something that somebody had put there before they got home. I'm running with this, guys. I'm going to say that he did it. But that's just my guess for right now. Okay. So she brings, Amelia to this hotel, and when Amelia asks her how her father is doing, Veronica tells Amelia he's doing fine and does not tell her the truth, because she thinks that if Amelia knows the guy is dying, Amelia won't help her. I think that's bollocks. I think that she should have told Amelia the truth. I don't really understand why she feels like if like her father is dying, Amelia won't help her, because if anything, I feel like Amelia, realizing that her father was innocent and dying, would want to get him out of prison so that she could spend some time with him before he died, and it would make her more urgent to like try and help. But that is not how Veronica sees this. So she doesn't tell her the truth, which winds up being a nail in her coffin a little bit later on. And is really trying to get her to stick with calling her boyfriend, and like that's it, and not tell her boyfriend where he is. But the dude that's on Amelia's trail is way too smart and knows exactly how to like get into a spot where he's talking to Amelia by getting at her boyfriend's phone, which, yeah, that's pretty smart. Erin Chambers is the one that's playing Amelia, and she is ringing so many bells when I look at her, and I can't figure out where I know her from. But I know her from something where she was a character that I did not like. And I don't remember what it is. But, so yeah, she winds up kind of like screwing Veronica by talking to her boyfriend, which I think Veronica should have put the big kibosh on. But I understand her not wanting to be too strict with this girl, because not only is that like not endearing somebody to you, but also kind of making you look suspicious if you just don't want someone to contact anybody. So you have to like play that with a really soft hand. So let's go into our Neptune High and see what's going on. Midterms are coming and people are stressing out. We have a new arrival here, in the character, what's the word? I'm trying to think of, pantheon. I guess that's the word I want. Named Sabrina. And Sabrina is overachiever feels like way too mild a word. Sabrina is militant. Sabrina is a soldier for academics. She's more than a soldier. She's like a lieutenant at this point. She would be a general if she was allowed to like continue unchecked. We'll see what happens. But Sabrina is I'm going to name somebody that used to go to my school. Michelle Grega was this type to me. Michelle was somebody that I was kind of jealous of in a lot of ways because her family came from money. Not a ton of money, but enough. And she was cute and really perky and really like, had just had a sort of optimism about her a lot of the time, which Sabrina doesn't have in this episode, but I feel like she might if she wasn't going through what she's going through right now. And she was somebody who took her studies very seriously and did indeed become valedictorian, and it was completely predictable. And I respect in some ways being this dedicated, but of course there is the aspect of it, of tutors and free time and all of this that winds up coming into play a little bit later. So anyway, Sabrina is asking to reschedule her AP history final because somebody took out a ad in the classifieds with her picture and phone number that basically said that she was like a phone sex worker. And she has been getting calls all night long and was not able to sleep, which, unplug your phone, turn your phone off, whatever. But yeah, she says that she was not able to sleep and can she get it rescheduled? And when the teacher accepts this excuse and tells her that she can reschedule, the other kid in the class, Hamilton, really has a problem with it. He's just like super irritated that this teacher, who has said before, no exceptions whatsoever, is suddenly listening to the sob story of this girl, whom he points out her mother is the school board president. So, on the one hand, what the prank that was played on her is really shitty and underhanded. And I was glad that the teacher took her side on that and gave her an excuse. But when he says that, I'm not going to lie. He shifted my position on it a little bit. I was like, oh, really? Okay. Yeah, that does change things a little though. I don't want to be that person, but it's just naive to act like that's not going to be a factor in a teacher's decision. So Veronica is in the bathroom when Sabrina comes in and tells her, she's covered in grease, by the way, because she was changing a tire in her little fucking like cardigan set. And she tells Veronica that she knows who it is that's harassing her, that it is her ex-boyfriend, Brad from Home Improvement, who is bitter that they broke up and that he has been doing all of this shit to her because he's mad that they split. And I did initially I was like, well, okay. But it did seem like such orchestrated pranks that I was like, this doesn't seem like ex-boyfriends. This kind of stuff doesn't seem like what they do. You know what this is? This would be like an ex-husband kind of prank. This is the kind of thing when you have spent a long time with somebody and you really want to make their life miserable. But ex-boyfriend in high school, it just felt so over the top to invest that kind of time and energy in it that I just wasn't really buying it. But of course, at this point, I don't have a better option. And yeah, then she starts talking about how she's, falling behind in classes, that she hasn't been able to, and falling behind, I'm saying 1/100th of a percentage point, I think is what it comes down to a little bit later. It's really something. Veronica, meanwhile, obviously does not really like Sabrina because she's an uptight, militant nutjob in some ways, but she does really need money. And Sabrina is willing to pay her $500 to prove that it's this guy. So let's take a step back here. We find out, to jump ahead, that this was Hamilton's family. And that what they felt they were doing was evening out the playing field. Because she has access to all sorts of privileges and opportunities and advantages that their own son, who is obviously also incredibly gifted and intelligent, does not have access to because he has to work full-time, well, part-time, which equates to full-time when you're in school, at the pizza place that they own. So, it occurred to me a little while before that maybe it was Hamilton doing this. It turns out to be his parents, and he winds up having to shoulder the burden of the punishment in order to keep from getting charges pressed against him. Now, are his parents wrong for doing this? Yes. Yes. Listen, I'm not sorry though. It's unfair to subject her to all of this anxiety, and what they're doing is unkind, for sure. Don't get me wrong. But they have a point. And the way they went about dealing with it is wrong, but I really, really get it. And I don't really know what you can do to even out a playing field if you're not able to give your kid those advantages, other than take them away from the person who has them. And again, it's not fair play, but the thing doesn't start out fair to begin with. So I just feel like a complete hypocrite in being like, well, they were totally wrong. Yeah, they were somewhat wrong. But the mother later on winds up offering to press charges unless their kid just drops his claim entirely. So in my mind, fuck those people, frankly. I would have had more sympathy if she had reacted differently once it was revealed what was going on. But she is such a shit about it that I'm not feeling bad for them at all in any way. And I feel like Sabrina could have stepped in and said something. And she doesn't. She's happy to see this kid taken down. And for that, fuck Sabrina also. Because, you know what? And what's being done to her is shitty. Don't get me wrong. Especially the sex phone thing. That's just a special kind of gross, So, no, I do not appreciate it. But at the same time, as someone who comes from a less privileged background, who was often frustrated at the fact that there is literally nothing I could do to get the advantages that some people had, I get it. I really deeply get it. And Hamilton was not behind it. It was his parents. It wasn't even he himself who was doing this for his own gain, because it was so important to him to get into a good school, or because it was so important to him to, this was his parents who obviously are going to feel like they are failing their kid. And that's a whole other thing that I feel so bad about. Like, as a parent, especially when you are living somewhere where your kids go to Neptune High, which has like the most giant disparity in wealth of any school that I've ever seen. I mean, obviously it's fictional, but I'm sure these places exist. It's got to tear you up to see your kid, who is so smart and so gifted and who works so hard, fall behind through no fault of their own, and through what you feel is your own fault, because you are not able to provide them with the stuff that could get them to succeed, that extra bit of a degree. I can't imagine what that's like as a parent, because there's nothing that you can do except crazy ass shit like this, which is frankly nuts. But I really feel like I understand it. So I feel for Sabrina in that she really does go through some shit here. The anxiety through like having air let out of your tire, having people calling your house, having people show up because someone's handing out flyers saying that there's going to be a party at your place, car alarms going off, people just like, driving past your house and doing God knows what. It is really stressful and unfair. And she's not at fault for what she has. She did not choose to be born into the family that had money. She did not choose for the kid that she's up against to not have money. But like I said, she gets the opportunity later to sort of level the playing field out and stand for this guy in the face of her mother. And she doesn't do it. So she doesn't, there's no sense of acknowledgement that she has that privilege in the first place. And that's really the main thing. It's like, I don't blame people for having the privilege. I blame people for having it and not admitting that they have it and trying to behave as if they are in the same boat as everyone else when they are very much not. Don't lie to yourself and everyone else. It's insulting and it makes you look foolish because we know you're smart enough to tell. So I kind of just like went through that entire deal, but I will be going back and touching on a couple points. But Brad, which is what I'm going to be referring to him as from now on, Brad is driving around outside her house in some like beat up yellow pickup, trying to keep an eye on her because he hears via Veronica that somebody is harassing her. And of course, Veronica comes at him thinking that it's him that's doing it. And he's like, hi, no, why would I do that? And he keeps on saying, I would jump off the roof for her if she asked me. He keeps using that phrase, which I find super funny. So when Veronica sees him driving around, she assumes that it's him and that he's just been lying. But he says it's because he's trying to protect her, which turns out to actually be true. He is clearly like not going to keep up with Sabrina. I admire the fact that he cares about a woman who is so driven, because it seems like he really looks up to some like women who are strong and capable, and that's cool. So I like that. But I'm not sure if I'm categorizing her as strong and capable fairly, because she's just really intelligent and hardworking and an overachiever. But strong doesn't necessarily go with all those things. So, Anyway, I'm going off the rails here. Let's go back to what's going on with Veronica and Amelia. First of all, we run into this moment where there's a woman who is talking to Keith, and she's trying to set up her husband with a prostitute that he picks out and gets her husband to go off to a hotel with, and then he's going to run in and get a money shot and give it to her, and she's going to give him a bonus in exchange for the divorce settlement because he will have violated their prenup. Which, I guess that's kind of like a par for the course thing when you have people who are married but hate each other. I can't even imagine getting to a point in a relationship with somebody that I married that I hate them so much that I'd be willing to pull that kind of thing. Like, I just can't, you know, like, and I'm divorced. I did not have a great ending to my last marriage, but I would never ever say that I hated him at all. It was just a disaster, you know, but he's a really good guy who deserved to be happy. And I'm really glad that he found that with somebody. And I'm not at all like, I just am sharing a home and life with somebody that you despise to that degree just seems so sad to me. And it is the reality for so many people out there. And I just don't know how they get through the day. But yeah, so Keith obviously is like, bitch, listen, that's not what I fucking do. Get the fuck out of here. And she's like, well, I guess I'll take my business elsewhere. Vincent Van Lowe seems like he wouldn't worry about the letter of the law because Keith's like, that's entrapment, lady. And he's like, all right, you can go and talk to Vincent, but what he'll do is take the photos and then go to your husband and say, give me twice the money she was willing to pay me, and I will tell everybody that you were a choir boy and turned this woman down. So that's the deal. And Vincent Van Lowe, as it turns out, is fantastic, and I want him to be around so much more. He is that comedian whose name I'm forgetting that I will find in a second, who I love. And Veronica has like busted in on this meeting with her dad and is chatting with him for a second. And when she comes back out into the main room of the office, fucking Logan's sitting there on her computer. Logan, buddy, you are too much. It's pretty amusing though, actually. So it turns out that now she has a bit of an ally. Ken Marino, thank you, Jamie. She has a bit of an ally in this investigation. And I don't want to say an unwilling ally, more like an unexpected ally. Because he sees that she's got files on everybody. And is like, what do you think Lily would say if she saw that you were investigating all of these people who loved her? And Veronica's like, if I didn't love her so much, I wouldn't still be on this. And frankly, like, I wish that she would have said to Logan, why would I invest people that didn't love her? Because it's always people who love you that wind up murdering you. Like, that it's so rarely somebody's enemy. You know, it really is. And when I say people who love you that murder you, I'm saying love in quotes. Like they think they love you or you thought they loved you. It's the people who are closest to you in your life, especially if you're a woman. I think it's something like 60% of women are killed by their partners. 60% of female murder victims are killed by their partners, something like that. It's really a mark of how like naive he is. And also maybe the fact that he's a guy, that he does not understand why looking at the people closest to her in her life is the first thing that Veronica is going to do. But yeah, I wish that she had pointed that out to him a little bit, because the likelihood of this being just some stranger who like broke into their house or somebody who didn't like her at school, who do you think it is, dude? Like, yeah. So I would really love for her to like pick his brain and find out for real if he believes that the guy who's in prison for it did it, or if he thinks that there's something else going on, if he's ever had a suspicion or an inkling that it might be somebody else. But we'll see. So there's a whole other thing that comes up a little later too with Logan, and I'll talk about that later. Like I said, there's a lot in this episode. So he winds up like kind of getting involved in this, without really meaning to, because the fact that she's still suspicious and that she helped him, gives more credence to the whole thing. And he gives her a check for helping him try and find his mom. And I appreciated that he, like, despite getting news that he did not want, which was that his mother probably really is dead, which I guess she is. If we combine the fact that his sister was using all her cards and there was that like image of somebody who had jumped off, or what looked like somebody had jumped from that video those kids did. I think that his mother probably is dead. It's surprising to me that it was handled in such an open-ended sort of way, and the show doesn't have them eventually find the body or anything. But I'm going to accept that for now. But I like that he's still like going to pay Veronica for the work that she put in. She really did try. And he's not trying to like blame her for the fact that his mom is dead, which I feel like, or not accepting what the evidence shows him, which is that she's probably gone. He's not trying to push Veronica to follow other weird leads or saying that she's not trying hard enough. He's being fairly adult about the whole thing. And Veronica tears up the check and says that his mother was always really nice to him. And I appreciate that gesture, and he seems to be touched by it. So I think it was the right call on her part to get him on her side. But he's not hurting for money. It's not like you're doing him a huge favor by not charging him the way you would be if somebody was like, I can barely afford to pay this, but you did the work, so here's your money, and then you like let them off the hook. But I get what she was trying to do there, and like I said, I think it goes a long way in making him feel like he has a friend in her a little bit. But yeah, she's paying for the hotel room of Amelia, and that's not free. So she's still worried about money and kind of kicking herself after she does it. All right. So jumping ahead here, we have all the people that show up at Sabrina's house trying to come in for the party. We have her conversation, Veronica's conversation with Amelia, explaining about the shoes in the evidence and the way that things don't look like her father could have done it, that it was either a frame or a setup. And the whole, like, I just can't imagine someone murdering their own family. Amelia is honestly a little bit of a sweet cinnamon roll. Like, she just doesn't, bless her. But yeah, she wants to see her dad again, and she asks Veronica if she can set up a visit with him in the prison. And she tells Veronica about this thing, which I referenced earlier. He was going to create a program that would put Kane out of business, but of course nothing ever came of that. One day, my mom brings him a cup of coffee, and she spills it all over his work, and he backhands her. And we left, and they got divorced like a year later. So yeah, the patent that he was going to have for streaming video basically got stolen from him somehow by Kane. Don't know how, but and he just goes into this downward spiral that ends up with the what's the word I want? It ends up with the dissolution of his family. Disintegration, I think, is the word that I really want there. And of his mental well-being. And, we find out later that he has cancer, so his health is also not great, which could be part of why he starts to spin out of control. We don't know how long ago he found out that he was sick. I'm not sure if Veronica specified that, but by this point, he might have already known. And that could certainly add to the stress of the whole situation, realizing that you're like, really ill, and because America is garbage and you get sick and die if you're poor and you don't get treatment. It's certainly understandable if he was like starting to completely panic about what he was going to do to keep his family safe and, cared for. So it's a sad kind of story the whole way that this goes. And yeah, she kind of asks like, why am I getting the money? And I'm like, where do you think it would go? Of course he's giving you the money. Like, you're his kid as much as any, no matter what else has happened. So there's a pretty fun moment where Veronica is at Sabrina's house and she takes on a call that, is from one of the phone sex number people, and immediately looks up the phone number and figures out who it is and tells them like their whole life history, and then is like, put your pants on and get a job, which I found amazing. All right. So let's go to the scene where Vinny Van Lowe comes in, because he is hilarious. the intro that we get of him coming in, he like leans in through the door in this way. It's amazing. I hope you're not thinking of dyeing that hair, because when you come work for me, you'll find that straying husbands are most likely to chase skinny blondes. No, I'm kidding, of course. They'll chase anything. But seriously, don't dye that hair. Oh, God, that's amusing to me. Just the whole way he handles himself. He is in Brooklyn Nine-Nine as this like kind of incompetent, I think he's a captain for a little while, and it's like really painful. He's in so many things, and I always find him really funny. And Keith comes out and says, "No hair advice for me," to which I'm like, well, Keith, no offense, buddy. You don't have a whole lot to work with. Maybe you shouldn't have set yourself up on that. But I'm just saying. So it turns out that what Vinny wants to do is like team up with Keith, because he says that he has more than he can handle, and that he will make sure to give Keith the cases that are like, that don't have some sort of like ethical question in them. And that way Keith won't feel weird about doing them. And, you know, obviously Keith is like, thanks, I'm fine on my own. Like, I don't know how they're getting, but like, I don't know how business is doing for the Marses. It seems like it's okay, but Keith is not interested in working with this guy. And I have to state up front, I hope something goes wrong and that the Marses have to work for this dude, because that's hilarious and he's hilarious. And I just want Keith to be uncomfortable a little bit, because Keith is just way more fun when he's uncomfortable. And also I just like, I kind of want him to show him up, because I'm going on faith here that Keith is better than Vinny at this job. I'm not positive of that. And maybe Vinny could be better because he doesn't have the qualms about ethics that Keith has. Who knows? But I just want to see more of Vinny. So that's pretty much where I stand right now, is that I'm like trying to sabotage the Marses in my head because I want them to be forced to work with this guy. So, okay. The obviously what Veronica winds up figuring out is that probably he has something to do with what's going on with Hamilton. Well, it turns out to be Hamilton. What's going on with Sabrina? But we will get there in a second. So let's do the party that Veronica goes to right after this. It's sort of a weird thing. She goes to Duncan's house. There is a party that is weirdly formal for a bunch of high schoolers, because it seems like mostly high schoolers. I'm not sure what this party is for specifically. Is it all the people who are like eligible for, is it like the Honor Society or something? Help me out, guys. But his parents are obviously surprised to see her at their door and are just sort of weird with her. And there's like past hors d'oeuvres, and the whole thing feels really like too adult. It's just strange. Fucking Sabrina's got a turtleneck and pearls on. They're just, it's so weird to see this sort of atmosphere, but like all young kids. It's unnatural. Anya says 5 seniors and 5 juniors with highest GPA. Oh, okay. So does Veronica have one of the highest GPAs? Is she there like legit, or is she just crashing the party? Either way, like, I'm fine, but I'm curious about her standing, because if she's got one of the highest GPAs and she's got as much going on in her life as she does, good for her. And Veronica is sort of like checking out things and putting things together in her head, trying to think through what could have happened to lead to Lily's death. So then we get some weird sort of like black, white, and green what if scenarios. And when I say black, white, and green, I mean that everything in the scene has been washed out to black and white, except for like the grass, some of the leaves on the trees, and Lily's shirt. And otherwise, there's no color in the scene at all. And we see a like, A fight between Lily and her mom, as Veronica's wondering if this could have happened, where Lily is sitting out by the pool. Her mom comes up to her and tells her that Veronica can't come around anymore. And Lily teases her about how that's her stepdaughter and that maybe Duncan's been slipping her more of the family hospitality than he should. And her mother slaps her. Lily slaps the mom back, and the mom grabs something off the table and like wails her in the head with it, and Lily goes down. I 100% do not think this is how it happened. It's crazy. But it was a weird moment for me to realize that we're going to do this in the show, that we're going to have like these sort of the hypothetical, that's the word I want, hypothetical moments that we actually get to see like play out. 'Cause it's kind of cool, you know? So yeah, this whole thing, then we have the scene where maybe Lily was making out with Weevil by the pool, and her father comes up and like grabs her off him and then like has Weevil by the ear and is like, "You think you can make a fool of me?" and shoves her, and then she falls and hits her head. And then he tells Weevil, "If you breathe one word of this, you're going to go down for it," which again, I don't think is at all what happened. Could it be? I guess maybe, but I gotta be honest, Duncan's dad does not seem like a forceful enough type to have that sort of reaction to his daughter making out with a guy. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't know, like, dads are weird about their daughters, and Weevil is certainly not a savory character. As much as I like the guy, if I had a daughter who got involved with him, I would sure fucking be worried because he is into some shit. So, maybe he would. But there is quite a jump from like being that upset to then shoving your own daughter in that way. And also, I just don't see the way that he's like, "I'll make sure you go down for it." That does not feel like the guy that we've met. Maybe it is, you know, up until like this episode, I was like, "Oh, I bet her dad did it." I don't know. I bet her dad did it. So like, sure, maybe he, you know, but like, it just doesn't, the way that plays out just seems so unnatural. So yeah, that's the other one. And then we have Veronica, like, she's standing and she sees Lily, like, walk by, like a ghost or a flashback moment or something. And Lily says, "Come on, Dorcas," which I really like. And we have her sitting out by the pool the way that she did when she died. And she sits up and says, "Oh my God, worst party ever. What are you doing at this nerd fest?" And she's got her, you know, blood and brain matter showing all on the side of her face. And this is when she says, "Veronica, they have their faults, but they are hardly murderers. You have got some imagination." So that's the thing. When she says they are hardly murderers, I really feel like that's it. Case closed. I believe her ghost. I don't think that's them. But maybe I'm a fool. Maybe I'm a big old dum-dum. It's certainly possible. It's happened before. And Duncan comes out at this point and is talking to Veronica. And I really like, it's so amazing to me, the difference between how I view Duncan now versus the first episode, because I just didn't get it at all. You know, like, he was a fairly attractive kid who seemed to have no real personality, and I didn't understand the draw at all. And now, when he comes out here and stands with Veronica, and the way that he like immediately understands that she's kind of hiding from everybody else, and she says she's not, and that she followed Lily, but like, let's be honest, she a little bit is. And then he's like, "I come out here sometimes too to think about her. First, I begged my parents to sell the house. I couldn't even walk by this spot. And then it grew so that this is where I feel closest to her. And I come out here to feel like I'm with her." And I really liked this. Like, he's being really open and vulnerable with her about it. He's being as honest as he can. And he understands why she's out here and isn't like giving her a hard time. And obviously, there's nothing about the way that he's acting here that says, oh yeah, I totally murdered her. Now, one could say, maybe he doesn't remember murdering her. Maybe. If we're going to do that, I'm going to lose some respect for this show. I'll be really honest with you guys. I know you all love this show, and I'm willing to say this because I feel like that's not what's going on. So I have confidence that I'm not going to be letting you guys down. But if it turns out that Duncan Kane murdered his sister in a fit, well, during some epileptic episode or whatever the hell, and then he just doesn't remember it, I'm going to call bullshit big time. So that's where I stand on that. But yeah, so I just really like the scene between the two of them. I like Duncan, like, because we know he's had dreams about Lily as well. So there is also that little added element where, even though it doesn't happen in this scene, I feel like if she told him, I thought I saw her walk out here, that he would get it. I'm not sure he'd entirely believe it or whatever, but I feel like he'd be like, really? And actually listen to her instead of, you know, just like kind of discounting it. So yeah, I really like this scene, and I really like Duncan so much more after having watched, you know, how many episodes is this? 17. I just understand the draw that he has for her, and I feel the kind of grief in some ways that she does at the idea that they might be related. Because part of me is like, oh, I wish they could just get together again, you know? But like, nah. So if that's true, you know, which I'm assuming it is still, and it really may well not be, but I still kind of feel like it is. So, all right, let's jump ahead to, we have Veronica going and seeing Hamilton at the pizza place and him talking about how he doesn't get the same opportunities. And her just being like, yeah, I mean, he ain't wrong. But she does put a tracker on his car. And then we've got Keith, who is at home when fucking Clarence tries to break in. Clarence, buddy. I guess he's doing it in the middle of the day because he assumes that Keith is not going to be home. But it is so embarrassing. I mean, is Keith's car not there? How does he not know this dude's home? And Keith handles this like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you knock. Must have been in the shower. Come on in. The whole way that he does this is so fucking baller. Keith Mars does not lose his cool. And it just makes me so jealous. I wish that I could be like that. And fucking Clarence is looking for Amelia. And when he tells Keith that he is, Keith's like, do you want my help finding her? Like, I'm not exactly sure what it is you're looking for here, but she's not here. And he's like, are you sure? Because I thought she might be staying with you. And he's like, first of all, I have 2 rooms in this apartment and I live with my daughter. No. Second of all, I don't know who that is. And I, at that point, thought Keith was like bluffing. But as it turns out, she changed her name and Keith really doesn't know who she is until Veronica like explains it. So yeah, he tells her what's going on. And when he figures out how far Veronica has gotten in this investigation, he decides that he is going to let her in on the information that he does have. And he winds up like giving her the combination to his safe, like the whole thing. I am so happy that they're on the same team again with this. I swear to God. It was just such a like, when he comes and gives her the combination, I was just like, oh, yay. But yeah, at first he thinks that like, oh shit, I really must have them scared because he's coming to break into my house. And then he's like, but then I stepped back and was like, I didn't do shit. I haven't even touched that case. Why would it, what? And then he realizes that it's his daughter and she's the one pushing shit still. And I love that moment of him just being like, you know what? One, I told you not to do this, but clearly I have taught you to pursue shit, and that's kind of on me, and you're going to do it anyway, and I may as well give you the tools to do it right. Secondly, obviously you're uncovering some real shit here. So I can't pretend that you're just like on a wild goose chase and ignore this shit anymore. You are finding some real threads. So I want you to pursue this also. And third, I can help you. So if you're pursuing some real shit, leaving you to do it all alone isn't really fair. I can help you out with it. He did know about Abel Koontz's stomach cancer. But he, didn't realize that did he realize that he had a daughter at all, or that she changed her name? I'm trying to find the spot, but in any case, it doesn't really matter in the end, because now they're on the same side. And we have this weird, another hypothetical situation where she's thinking about like a good man in a bad situation. And we go to, Jake, who's like on the ground next to his daughter, calling up Clarence to handle things. And she's like thinking to herself now that maybe she misjudged Clarence, and that he's not like the enemy who set all of this up, that he's the guy who got called to like deal with it simply because of who he is. But I do want to know what she thinks about the like photos of her with a target on her in relation to all of this, because we don't really get that this episode. Obviously, she's so caught up in what's going on with Lily, she's not really thinking back to what's going on with her and her mom. But I understand trying to give him the benefit of the doubt in regard to this, but in terms of everything else, I'm kind of like, well, yeah, maybe not though. So yeah, Mr. Kane, listen to me. I need you to go to the trunk and get the rest of it. And then we need to decide which one of you found her. This whole hypothetical thing. Now show me the body. And he's got like a bag of ice, because I guess they're trying to change the core body temperature of the body to make it seem like she was dead for longer than she has been. This whole thing is it's a little bit outlandish, but it's possible. Again, like everything that Veronica's coming up with, while a bit out there, isn't so absurd that you can discount it easily. So then we have Logan talking about Duncan. And I guess that he saw enough to read the part of Duncan having epilepsy, and he doesn't know about it. And he's like, we've been friends since like literally kindergarten, as the earliest memories of friendship that is possible to have, I have with him. And I don't understand why he would never tell me about this. And she says that she thinks his parents don't want anybody to know, because they still want him to be like president, and they think that would preclude him from being able to do that. I'm really curious if that's at all the thing. I'll be interested to see because I wouldn't think that it would stand in the, like, the way that I always approach shit like this, where you're trying to hide something in order to be able to get to a position of power, I always approach it as, you are going to get caught. Assume that. When you get caught, how will it look? And to me, the way that if he gets caught that he has epilepsy after getting elected to like the highest position in the land, is that he has a fit in front of people on camera, which is like, not great. So I feel like that's a problem that if that's what she thinks, they're kind of ignoring. But, we all like to pretend that we can just like figure it out as we go along and there won't be any problems. She says that because he asks if Duncan has fits, and she says they can be that way. Other times they manifest themselves as hysterical laughter or uncontrollable crying or a blind rage. And he looks at her then. And when she says, does any of that sound familiar to you? He says, I'm only telling you, but last year I went over to their house and I heard this like screaming coming from the next room. And I thought somebody had broken in. And I got there, he was on the floor and he had his hands around his dad's throat. And when I tried to pull him off, all of a sudden, he was regular Duncan again. He was himself. He like went limp and then he was fine. And she asks, well, what did his dad say to you? And Logan says nothing. We helped Duncan to his room and it was over. I tried talking to Duncan the next day at school, but he acted like he didn't remember a thing. And I don't know, you know, like, was that a fit? Was it related? Or was it part of me is like, did he find out that Veronica was his sister? Was that what happened there? And he like flipped out because when she asks, was that when Lily died? He says, no, it was it was the week you guys broke up. So, right? It's gotta be. He finally sat down and told Duncan, Veronica's your sister. And Duncan lost his fucking mind. Because of course you would. Holy shit. Like, Jesus, yes, of course. So I figure that's what it is. And that and maybe just realizing that his friend was there and seeing everything made him go limp and like be cool again because he was like, well, I have a friend who's standing right here and I really don't want to have to tell him what's going on. So I guess I'm just going to drop it and act like I don't remember anything because I don't know what else to do with this situation. Not a great way to handle it, but like, I don't know how I'd handle it. So, all right, so let's see. Veronica is going through, despite serious sleep deprivation, Sabrina remembered to get the plate on the offending car, an 83 K car registered to Deborah Verrill, who's touring Europe, playing Jasmine in Aladdin on Ice. I doubt it's a coincidence that Deborah was once married to Vinny Van Lowe, Private Eye. That's the connection, because I couldn't remember what it was. So she decides to go over and try and bug Vinny's place in one of the funniest scenes ever. She goes over there and acts like she's selling cookies and gives him a pen and pretends that pen is like the weird peace offering that her father sent. And it's really awesome, the like interior design of this place that she's in. She talks about like black and chrome and why they're considered masculine. And there's also tons of red and really bad like impressionist art. And Vinny's mom is the one who's the receptionist, which is great. But yeah, it's a nice little setup because she gets him to pay attention to the pen, which is a real old like method of putting a bug in somebody's office. And he's so distracted thinking that he's figured her out with that he does not notice that there's a bug in either the pin or in the cookies. I don't even remember which one it winds up being. But yeah, they get the information that they need, but not before he sings Private Eyes Are Watching You out the window. And similarly to Veronica singing, I'm gonna get you for way too long in that other episode. That shit goes on a long time. He goes on for a long time. Guys, I was not ready. Oh God, it's so stupid. I love it. He turns around, like wails his ass out the window, like the whole thing. It's just, so yeah, he thinks that he's really figured her out, but he has underestimated her. So yeah, I enjoyed that scene a lot. But that's when she puts it together who it is that set this whole thing up on Sabrina. Under the circumstances, assuming Hamilton and Sabrina finish the year 1 and 2, we are willing to split the scholarship this year. And this is Jake saying this, trying to if that's acceptable to the two of you. And he really thinks that he's come up with a compromise. And Hamilton seems like that would be acceptable to him. But Sabrina's mother says no. That belongs to her, and so does the scholarship. There's one agreement I'm prepared to make. This young man will remove himself from the valedictorian race and we won't press charges. And again, Sabrina, I know that she's a kid and I know that her mother is super overbearing, but I would have appreciated at least a show of support, an attempt to rein her mother in. And Hamilton agrees that he's just going to take himself out because he does not want something to happen to his parents. He cares about his dad. Also, can we talk for a real quick second about how hot Hamilton is? That's real distracting. I don't like it. Hamilton, stop it. What the fuck, dude? You were about to be valedictorian. You're wearing a denim jacket and earrings. How is that hot? But yet he works it. He does. Really, it just makes me question everything about what I think my type is. Denim jacket and earrings. You would never have heard me. I think he even has a puka shell necklace on under that thing. But yeah, she says, what are you going to do? And he says, work 2 jobs, take out loans, state school. 20 years from now, she'll be working for me. And he says it with such confidence that Veronica is charmed by it for a second. But as somebody who has, grown up in this era, I think we all know that was a very optimistic outlook, and I don't know that worked out for him. Fingers crossed. But yeah, it's just hard to watch because, you hope that something is really going to be fair by the end of this episode. And as it turns out, he just has to let them win because it just sucks. So Amelia, she winds up giving herself away by answering a phone call from her boyfriend, which it turns out is actually from Clarence. And he tells her about how Veronica lied to her about her father's health. And basically he tells her this Veronica is not who she says she is, which I'm not entirely remembering who Veronica said she worked for. I thought she was being pretty honest about that. So I don't know what else he told her other than the health of her father. Maybe that was all it took. But yeah, I was really irritated with him on this. And yeah, when Veronica says, did you take her? He says she took herself, which I'm like, what does that mean? Did she go back to college? Or did she go hide or what? And then when she says, where did she go? He says, where would you go if you had your own Swiss bank account? So she's in the wind. She has all this money at her disposal. Who the fuck knows? I don't know why she would run, honestly, unless she thought that Veronica was trying to kill her, which I guess. She just finalized her father's settlement with Kane Software. Settlement. And then he winks at Veronica and she just walks away disgusted. Poor Keith too. He wants to defend his daughter and he has to sit there and watch this. So Veronica is sitting next to the safe trying to think of what the hell the combination could be. And that's when her father comes in. What are you sitting on the floor in the corner for? Don't sit there. Take the chair. And then he goes and opens the thing up for her. And it's really sweet. And I really liked it. And then she asks him why he thought that there was something suspicious. And he talks about how when he got to the scene and was questioning them about what had happened. First of all, Jake is obviously a mess. The way he's telling them what happened feels inconsistent. He's jumping around from 5 minutes. Maybe it was 10 minutes. I don't know. Maybe it was 20 minutes. And they're in the middle of this interrogation when there's a ding. And he looks over and realizes that somebody started laundry while recently. This was a cycle that is short enough that it had to have been started since they got home. And it's certainly possible that if Duncan was upstairs in the shower, like the mom said he was, that Duncan came home and tossed his own stuff in there. But as Keith points out, they have 2 full-time housekeepers and that they hadn't done their own laundry in a really long time. So the fact that they would start a load, that Duncan would, just seems so unlikely. And I have to admit, and he says it was a soccer uniform I found in the dryer. Duncan and Lily were so different. They didn't always like each other. This is her thought, but they always loved each other. He never would have hurt her. But what if emotional turmoil, the same kind that drove him to attack his father, turned Duncan into someone else entirely? Now, Veronica, the same that drove him to attack his father, you didn't put it together? What could have happened there, lady? It didn't occur to her that maybe Duncan had gotten the news about like what was going on with their parentage? She didn't think of it? That's crazy to me. Girl, come on, keep up. Because there's no reason to attack Lily the same way that he attacked us. That wasn't just a fit, obviously. But whatever. So, who killed Lily? Weekly check-in. No idea. Veronica. Veronica killed her. I don't know. Like, straight up, guys, I have nothing. I figure it's gotta be Abel Koontz, right? It has to be. I don't know. That's all I can think of. I don't know. I really don't. But that's all I've got. So, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm over time. At 4 o'clock, just about an hour and a half, I am going to be live watching the next episode on Facebook streaming. So if you want to join me for that, please do. I may be starting a couple of minutes late. Just want to forewarn you because I have some errands to run that I have to do before that, or else the place will be closed by the time I'm done. I am going to be sending the book swap. Finally, I'm able to send it. And it's going to get there on time. God damn it. But I just want you all to know that I'm going to be maybe running a little bit late. I think I should be fine, but just in case. And I'm excited because everybody seems pretty interested in what I think of this next one. So we'll see what happens. So yeah, thank you guys all so much for coming. I really appreciate it. And thank you to Jacqui for commissioning this episode. And I will see you in an hour and a half. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.